Thank you very much for coming and doing a podcast with me. I'm a big fan of yours, and I really have been thinking about interviewing you for my podcast for many reasons. And I think if you could just talk about what you're doing now, and then we can sort of fill in the life experience. But tell me what's going on in your life right now.
Well, first, Norma, thank you for having me. It's a real honor. You're an idol, a touchstone for me, and have always been someone who's pushed me. So I thank you. I thank you for that. What have I been doing? When you're a producer, you can work on a number of projects at the same time, and some projects take a really long time to get done, and every day you kind of go in and say, okay, how do I get this project made? What do I do for this? What do I do for that? And it just seems like within the past year, everything came together. So I am finally, after 6 years, documentary I did with Rashida Jones and Al Hicks on Quincy Jones, came out a year ago in theaters and on Netflix, and that's just been a gift to have worked on it. Quincy has been a long time mentor and supporter, and to be able to tell his story to a whole generation has been just inspiring. And then another project I'd been working on with Ava DuVernay for a while about the Central Park Five, called When They See Us.
Amazing.
Was on, came on Netflix in late June, and we were nominated for 16 Emmys, and we won 2, and we got to give the men, the exonerated 5, a moment that was a moment, and to kind of re-examine what happened to them, and re-examine what's happened in our
Culture.
Our culture, our criminal injustice system. And then another movie that I've worked on for, it started like 2009, trying to get this made and bring Scorsese and De Niro and Pacino and Pesci back together. That just took, that's almost a movie unto itself, with just how that went. And we just opened the New York Film Festival, and we were closing night of the London Film Festival. It will be in theaters November 1st.
Oh, wow.
And so it'll play in theaters for a month, and then it will go on the Netflix platform globally, as well as still stay in movie theaters for many months to come.
Yeah, it was just so great to see, and I'm sure you worked very hard at making sure that all of these big personalities got together and performed at their peak. I mean, they were all stellar, and it was so great to see. And for me, it was like, this is a chance that we're not going to see again. This is a moment that will not happen again, and that having that film is the best way to sort of put the party together at like one last time. How did you,
well, so going back, I don't think that anyone looked at this as this is the last of anything.
But how do you top this?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, if you're gonna have Scorsese and De Niro come back, they hadn't worked together since '95, since Casino.
Wow.
So in looking for something, and if they're going back into telling a story about this kind of life, how do they explore it differently?
Yeah.
What is it that has a sense of that history, to tell the story of power and family? What is it that is going to be unique and special for them to go back in and not repeat themselves? And certainly when you look at something with the perspective of age, it gives you a different, you have a different type of rhythm, you tell a different kind of story. But this was something that we originally were doing, we were about to do another movie called The Winter of Frankie Machine, which was also about an older hitman, but it was in California. It was fictional, inspired by some true events. And Bob read this book called I Hear You Paint Houses by Charlie Brandt, and had really read it as research for The Winter of Frankie Machine. And then as he and Marty kept talking and researching for Winter of Frankie Machine, they finally realized, you know what, we should do I Hear You Paint Houses. And so that morphed. We brought Steve Zalian in, and he's an extraordinary writer. He did The Night Of, he wrote Schindler's List, and just has
amazing,
he did Awakenings. He's just got an amazing body of work. He came in and did the draft of I Hear You Paint Houses, and that was delivered by 2009, and then everybody had other projects they were working on. Marty was going to do Departed and Wolf of Wall Street, and we just kept going in these different iterations. And I think it was around 2014 before Marty went off to do Silence. Bob and I decided to do a reading, and I honestly believed that this was all we were ever going to have of I Hear You Paint Houses, was this reading, and we taped it, and I have this reading, and it was after that they all said, no, let's really try to get it done.
It's great. I mean, I just think it's so important to see this group together, all of the heroes for all of these films, and each of them have huge bodies of work that are just unbelievable. To have them all come together with this director and all of the people, the writing, everything, just really showed in the product. And I think having this as the capper on that is just a blessing for everyone who loves this. This is the kind of movie you watch 100 times. It's like, it's not a Godfather, but it's a different kind of addictive movie that you have to keep seeing and seeing, because there's so many, I can see people quoting lines from it. I mean, it's like riddled with stuff, right? Yeah. I just saw all of this stuff that's going to start generating this other culture that comes from it, and it's really great to have that. One of the things I think about when I think of you is this powerful, incredibly powerful woman with this inner strength that you would never know looking at you or even hearing your voice. It's so gentle, but there's this in steel. You're like, you can do anything. Like, the power is formidable. And I heard somebody who knew you when you were working for them many years ago talking about this long-legged, lanky girl coming in, flitting around, but man, she was strong. She knew what she was doing. And I thought, how interesting that at the very beginnings when you were working, people saw that, even though your lanky sort of whatever you were wearing and however your hair was sort of a present thing. And it's still that power is there, and your sort of gentleness is still on the outside, and you deal with all of these big personalities. What prepared you in your childhood? What was the preparation to create this person who can sort of get all of this going?
You know, it's I'm humbled in hearing what you just said about me. I guess I never, I never have felt my own strength or my own powers until, until very recently, and I mean just over the past couple of years of feeling that way. I think I always felt that, I wasn't in the fast lane, I was in the breakdown lane, and that it was having, working on movies, building what Bob De Niro and I were able to do with the Tribeca Film Center, but never, actually when you think about what we were describing in 1990, we were describing an open space and a shared economy for people to come and work. We were describing WeWork. And, it's, we should have maybe stayed with that plan. But anyway, I wanted to make movies. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to figure out what the change you can create in the world by the stories that you can tell, whether they were comedies or dramas. And I've always loved stories. So I never viewed it as there was some power that I had, because I also had, I have these wonderful daughters. One just turned 21 yesterday, and the other will be 25. And there's nothing like two girls to turn around and you can be feeling so great, you're on top of the world, and they look at you and say, "No, boy, that's not happening."
Right.
I also didn't come when you said how did you. I also came from as on one hand as supportive as my parents were. I came from a place where if I asked my father something, he would say no first, and it was, kind of a narcissistic mother in there, and I think that all I wanted to do was get out of the house, which I did, and I moved to New York to go to NYU. I was 17, about to be 18, and I wanted to work and to make my own money and to not be dependent on them.
Yeah.
And that was important. That sense of not having somebody say no.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm in a business that people say no
no
to you
all the
more
time.
than they say yes.
Well, you know how to deal with no. I think that your parents are your motivation to do. I mean, the same with me. That is really what forms your drive and your motivation. So I think any childhood of any description that creates somebody who understands what their skill set is as a result of that is a great thing. I mean, at the time you don't think it's so great, but look what you can do. You can accept no, you can do that. You said something interesting. Until the last few years, you haven't understood your power. So one of the reasons I wanted you to come is because I know that. And I have decided at 74 to talk openly and inspire women to understand that you can age with power, that there is power in aging. It is not a horrible thing. The transition through your 50s and through menopause and through hormones, and people lose jobs, separate from their relationships, all of these things happen. It is inevitable. It's what happens. It's the transition to the next part of your life, which I find the most powerful time of my life. And you just touched on the last couple of years being where you're feeling your power. So how did that come about? How did you realize that? What was that moment where you said, all right, I get who I am, I get what my power is?
I think it becomes a series of things. I feel like professionally, having worked on some projects that had taken me, that I discussed earlier, had taken me so many years to make, finally coming to fruition and being pleased with how they have been received in the world. Plus, one of my lifelong dreams was also to bring Marty Scorsese, was the one who introduced me to De Niro, and to be able to do something with them together.
Oh, wow.
So that was, also something I feel, an enormous sense of pride in. I think that on some of the other businesses that we do, it got to a point that I had to believe in myself versus other people around me who I thought always had all the answers. And it was the courage, and to a certain extent also the stamina, to say, I disagree. I might have thought that, this group knew absolutely everything, but it wasn't going to work anymore, and it wasn't. And to, I was way out over my skis at one point, and just, really questioning a lot of things. But you get to a point, if you can't, and I always felt this about my work, if you can't trust your own instincts, who do you trust? Okay, and that's in creative arts. It's what you do. If you can't trust your own instincts, who do you trust? And I realized that it was that way on another side of my business. I also think that, too, I went through a number of different issues with both of my daughters, and it was with all these various professionals around. At the end of the day, these are like my kids. I knew what had to be, I knew what had to do, even if it was, arguing with my ex and professionals and, whatever it was. And seeing them blossom and seeing how strong they are, knock on whatever.
And you too. I love the way you look. I love just, you look so good. You exude this power. You really do. I've seen your transformation of, obviously you've gone through your process, your transition, and really gave yourself the opportunity to feel the pain of it, to feel, which we all do. I remember my process, exhausting. I never thought I'd get through it. It was so depressing. Is there going to be a tomorrow? Will I ever do anything again? But you've gone, I mean, your career is so spectacular. And to see where you are now, and there's no question that tomorrow even has more. I mean, I see you and I see like you're on a path that is going to be great for everybody to have as your gift to all of us. I really, I wanted you to come here because I want women to see what power looks like when you understand that it's about you and what you give out that draws this to you. And you have to go through this process. It's one of the phases in a woman's life.
Well, I think it's also what I ended up realizing is that I was less alone by myself
Right.
than I was with somebody, and that I'm very happy. I'm insatiably curious about things and how we can create new things and what we can do. And I get exhilarated by that process. And that anyone that was trying to bring me down from that, I realized that didn't have a place in my life. Look, the other thing too is I lost one of my closest girlfriends a number of years ago, and you kind of say to yourself, okay, how much time do we really have to really do what we want and to make that difference? And if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? And I think that gives you a strength and a purpose, and it just is. I guess I haven't owned. I throughout my career have owned the word ambition, when ambition was always considered a dirty word for women. In listening to you here and talking about it, I haven't owned the word power, because I just feel I don't. You're only. I question that word. It's not super. You're not superwoman. You have all your foibles. I mean, I think the first superwoman for me was, or superhero for me was Mary Poppins. Looking at some of these hats. So.
But power is a healthy word, because power is grounding and it comes from within, and it's something you develop from within, and it gives you the confidence to do things with freedom. And like you said, you're curious. You totally are always so open and so curious about everything. And what happens is you draw people to you who fill that need you have. It's like you're a magnet for that. So power also does that. It draws the right people to you. And when you exude that power, the positive people come to you. And when you exude insecurity or a lack of self-esteem or all of the stuff that we suffer from, you draw the wrong people or the wrong men or the wrong, environment. And I think the longevity of curiosity is how you stay fresh, and having a purpose and knowing what that purpose is key. For me, understanding my purpose, that my job was to help women feel good about themselves. I wanted to make my mother feel good, so I worked very hard at that. I learned how to make any woman feel good once I figured out how to do that with her. And so I'm pretty good at that. And so it's even expanded now and even becoming more important. And so that's my purpose, and I'm comfortable. I like that. Your purpose is clear. I mean, your curiosity, your purpose is what's giving us the pleasure of what you're producing. And I think it doesn't have an age limit. that you know now. Your friend passed, but you realize that you really don't have an age limit. It's
No, but when you look at our society and who are the role models for women, and how difficult it is to find roles for women after a certain age, and looking at what's going on both behind the camera in our business, and the gender disparity in the business, the pay disparity in the business, and looking to and to realize that we at Tribeca have been seeing this for years and doing it before it was the buzzword, and everyone was saying we're going to be 50% women. Our company is 80% women. So to realize that the realities, and also to create role models, to have you as a role model, to look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to have these role models that didn't exist for women.
Which is part of the reason I want to do this podcast with women that I think can make these changes and be voices, because you're experiencing it. So I decided, people asked me to talk about aging. And I thought, well, I meet a lot of people and they don't know I'm 74. Why do I have to talk about I'm 74? And then I thought about it and I said, well, you know what? So what the hell? I'm totally cool with being 74, 75, whatever, and maybe that's what my role is. Maybe I am supposed to say, guess what? 74 is
young.
For me, it's my spirit is certainly whatever I think it is. And one of the other reasons I thought a good conversation is what you just touched on in fashion and in film. The images are always no lines, no character, no expression of life experience. And I want so much, through my example and whoever else I can muster, to start to create these images of what experience looks like and make it pleasing for people. We've trained ourselves to think that a baby skin, no life experience, innocence is beauty. Well, yes, that's beautiful, but power is beautiful. A woman who's strong and who is nurturing at the same time and is vital and creating something for everyone on the planet is beyond beautiful.
But that's also a change, and you're doing it through all the work that you've been doing globally. It's a change in how our society in the U.S., societies around the world, look at women, and look at women who are older and are not suddenly, oh, your grandma, go out to pasture.
Yeah.
And that's changed. And I think we have, whether we have started to understand our power as Mother Nature intended, or it's this ferocity of understanding, here's our experience, here's our voice, and letting loose, as opposed to, I think I certainly know for me, when I was younger, I didn't want to speak up in a room. I didn't speak. I think that, and I think the softness of my voice, that when I did speak and I could say, whatever to somebody, screw off or whatever, they're like, oh, well, it sounded more profound than it probably really was. So I think it's our time. I also feel the real commitment to make sure my daughters and the young women that I work with have their sense of, understand their power and their sense of equality and are heard sooner rather than later.
Well, you know, it's very funny because I could hardly speak for years, and nobody ever heard me speak either. Hard to believe, but but I was the same. I was very quiet. One of this sort of the one last bastion of having no politically correct protection is the aging, or the women, or especially women who are older. You know, the words like anti-aging and anti-wrinkle and all of this negativity that makes people feel bad and is offensive is still so okay that, for me, we have to start saying, hey, wait a minute, everybody's going to get here. We better start now, and we better look at what that means. And I keep going back to the word power again, because when you have power, people don't mess with you, right?
Well, the other thing is when you're filling out certain forms, and they say, you know, how old are you? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's no more box for me to check off. What the hell's this? You know, like,
right.
You know, what, you know, as consumers, as audiences, how they're measuring. And I think that too is changing as they see the spending power of you know, spending power of a certain demo, and how suddenly we're creating things, both fashion, food, music, all the products you're doing.
It's a powerful group. Yeah. It's a really powerful group. And I think even whether it's in film, of having more, unfortunately, because of the system, actresses are put in these boxes that don't allow that process to happen, where you can see this. And I think more stories, and I'm sure you're going to be sort of subliminally thinking about who's writing these stories or telling these stories about women who are winning and feeling positive and successful, and not hating the aging process and seeing the joy in it. It comes, but you have to earn it. I mean, it's a process you have to earn, and that story has to be told on film to inspire more women. And obviously, you're a perfect person to sort of figure out how that gets done. But the whole anti-aging thing has me so crazy. Writing age down too. Every time I just joined this gym, but and a yoga thing, and in each case you had to, and I wasn't there, I did it on email and filled in the form, on their website, and it said age, and I was like, damn, I don't want to put my age because it's going to look like I can't move, and I can do a split, and I can do this. Like, they're not going to know that. Right. Should I lie? And I thought, I'm so pissed off that I have to do this, and I didn't fill it in. I was like, I'm not filling it in.
Right. You say, I don't want to fill this in. I don't want to, I think the other thing. Let's go to fashion. Let's go to, you walk in to your store downstairs and you look at all the, designs, and that is for anyone of any age. Yeah. And I think that we've all, just in terms of dress, we're not dressing, our age, but I don't know what our age, is anymore. You know, we're,
that's a very good point.
And I think that, I think that's another part of feeling your youthful self.
It just shows your spirit. I mean, I think it's so funny because I'll meet women, I mean, I've been doing this for 51 years, right? So look at all the generations that have been customers at different points in their lives. They come into my life and then they go and they have another thing they do and a different way they dress. And it happens with all designers. It's expected. And so I'll hear people say to me, oh, I used to wear your clothes when I was going out and when I was younger, when my body was great. And I look at them and I think, I feel so bad that that they're not buying my clothes, because there are people buying my clothes, but that they think of themselves in a limited way. That there's no, that's not for me anymore. That's for my daughter or whatever. But to think, well, I could wear that. That could make me feel good. I could feel good in that color and that style.
But again, that's society. That's what certainly print publishing, magazines have done to women. That you know, I remember looking in like Vogue and it being aspirational, and then I kind of realized, okay, even if I could wear those clothes, I couldn't afford those clothes. Now I look at it and like going, who is wearing those?
And why would I want to spend that much money? Yeah, I mean, when you have the money, but why would I want to spend that much money on that? Yeah.
But your clothes are timeless, and you just feel so rock and roll.
Well, I mean, I think that thank you, because I'm happy when I do something and I've done something in 1973 and people are still wearing it now, and I think, who would have ever thought? And that's like a really good thing. But to have clothes and the purpose, again, of making people feel good is just, when you feel good in something, you're just, I have it, it's covered, I'm good.
I always feel, and certainly men don't have this issue at all, but I feel that when I get up in the morning and it's like, who am I today?
Right.
Who, am I going to set and, with my sneakers and my backpack, or do I have a meeting? Do I have to do, press for something? And I kind of feel like when I put whatever it is on, I feel a certain way. There was a time a while ago where I had to go to a board meeting, and I started to get dressed, and I put on a suit. And I thought to myself, wait a second, these people want me there because of me. Yeah. And not, I don't need to wear a suit. I like wearing suits, but I don't need to do this. And I just remember I took it off and I put on my black dress and I put on my boots and said, yeah, this is what this is who I am, and feeling good in who I am. I think the other thing with going back to power is, as a woman, to start to understand who you are, we have so many choices, and to feel that you create your own trend or your own, identity through clothes, without feeling like it has to be.
How you express yourself. It's very interesting. You said women really do have this opportunity to have fun when they dress and to tell the story of who they are that day or who they are in a uniform that they wear, and men don't. So recently, actually in the last 2 years now, I decided to photograph men in my clothes, and I don't do a men's collection, but not in drag. They weren't certainly drag, but they were wearing my clothes, and I was inspired to do so by an assistant hairdresser who was on the set, who was a New York Dolls fan, and I used to do clothes for the dolls, and so he was like, I didn't know what was wrong with him, and I didn't know he was a New York Dolls. So he was like, oh my God, these clothes. I was like, what's the matter? And he said, I just love them. And he tells me, and I said, at the end of the shoot, before we close the set, we'll take some pictures of you in the clothes if you want to wear them. So I saw this joy that women have on his face, and he was in heaven. He was so joyous. So then I thought, I'm going to do my photo shoots and have guys wear the clothes. The last photo shoot, I had 4 guys come in, and a very gender fluid group. Each one had a different inclination of how they expressed themselves and who they were. And I invited them to choose whatever they liked from the collection, bring their own accessories, and model in any way they wanted. The joy in the room was, I thought, why don't I have a camera here? Why am I not videotaping this? The spirit and the energy of seeing their happiness was so uplifting. And I didn't do anything. I just watched the way they styled themselves and what they did, and it was so great, and the pictures are so fantastic. And so I think the more men can feel this sort of, just like Mick Jagger brought in this, he was the first to describe gender fluid, really. We didn't know if he was into men or women, whatever. He's wearing lipstick and a dress and whatever, and he's dancing around on the stage and swishing, and but everybody fell in love with him. It's that kind of thing, that spirit, I think, that is finally going to see some happening with men.
Well, I think that's also just a huge societal shift too, in a Gen Z not even wanting to identify as either male or female, and feeling that why should you label me? I think that the more same-sex couples that are having children and taking maternity, paternity leaves creates a different way for our society to express family and express identity of what a mother or father or parents are. And so it's a real interesting time. And I think through that, as we're getting older and bolder, it's giving us new voice too.
Yeah. It's an incredible time, don't you think? I mean, it's so exhilarating to see. I mean, there's a lot of heavy stuff, but when you see this kind of spirit happening, you know that tomorrow's going to be okay. It is going to be okay.
I hope so. I feel that sitting here cocooned by hats. But I worry about what's happening in our political system. I worry that we all need to vote, especially in 5 states that will determine an election. That we're all so interconnected globally. It's I know there are a lot of good people out there, and part of what you do is inspire women to talk. Hopefully can follow in your lead, and to make sure that we find and use our voices, whether it's fashion or movies, but also in the body politic.
In the future, it's a critical. I just feel that the potential for leadership that is inspiring in the way when I was growing up, I would tell you, and people in my generation will tell you, that we would watch TV the few hours that it was on.
Right.
And it would be JFK, Martin Luther King, Gandhi. This is the landing on the moon. Think about that. Think about, these were all around at the same time. How positive and uplifting that is. And to have that memory so bold and clear in my mind from my childhood, and to think that that has to happen again, because these people do exist. They are somewhere. And unless we get that type of energy again, we really will always be fearful and always worry. But I am very positive in believing, because I saw it, and I saw what that energy can produce in people. It spreads to everyone, that there's a chance for this to happen again. And sometimes the pendulum needs to go in one direction before it goes in another. And it's just for me that inspirational human being is alive today, and there are more than one. And we need to do some kind of energy pull to get those people to come up again and inspire.
Well, we have more opportunity to find those people when you look at social media and how, you know, how everyone is connected. I mean, there's the pros and cons, but mostly the pros of the Twitterverse, and how you can create. And certainly watching your Instagram, I'm forever saying, oh, if Norma's exercising, I better go do a leg lift or something, because Norma has done that. But it is exciting. You talk about, you know, Nancy Pelosi is going to be 80 years old. I mean, she's
a pioneer.
She's extraordinary.
I look at her, and I know what she had to go through early in her career. I mean, you can just imagine all of those years and all the work she did to be in that world today at her age, even better.
Yeah, extraordinary.
I mean, I give her so much credit for the pioneering. I mean, her story has got to be written, and it's really a great story.
She's amazing.
I know. And I think that the women that are, you know, there's women who are in their 90s and hundreds are, you know, worshipped and appreciated. However, there are women who are 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75. There are women there too that need to be celebrated and need to be present and influential. And I think it's so important to make that happen now, and to start finding them and having a voice. And it could be somewhere in there. I believe for politics, you do need experience. I think a youthful attitude and a youthful spirit is very helpful. But I like knowing that there's experience. So if it's a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old or however, having gone through all the shit you go through in life is really helpful when you're strategizing a conversation or doing something like that. And maybe we can find this.
Well, you know, you look at other cultures that revere their elders and revere that wisdom in indigenous cultures. And we have never looked to revere our elders and respect our elders the way they do Native American cultures, and Japanese, and cultures throughout the world. And that's a shift. We're more about putting people away, and society
Getting them out of sight.
Getting them out of sight. I think that's what's so great about New York. You see people of all ages and everybody, and spending a lot of time in LA. I don't think
so different.
It's so different. But it is something, like, we look at other cultures, how they respect their elders.
Yeah.
They respect those wisdom keepers, and we need that. It's not always just whatever's new this instant. We, going back to politics, yes, you want everyone represented, but there is something to having somebody understand the history, whether they've lived it or they've read it or they've studied it.
And being inspiring takes people out of their political definition. So are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you moderate? Are you independent? Somebody inspirational just draws people. And that's that special person. So we don't have a divided country. We don't have these, packs of separated people. We need to start pulling people together. And how do you do it unless somebody is so powerful and their energy just makes you feel like you have to be a part of that?
Well, it's also being courageous. I think the one thing that we don't have, no matter what political party, are people with real courage and courage to stand up instead of just blindly going towards a party. That we've got there's so many things that we need to do in in this country, just infrastructure, as our cities are getting older. Talk about education. If our kids are our best natural resource and our future, then we need to be investing in education. That we don't pay our teachers. I mean, you start to go through that, and I think that if our education system was stronger, if you're paying your teachers to investing in that, then...
But also having a system that goes with the technology we have now, where children are seeing things in a different way. We need to educate them, and we need to educate... I think the modern form of slavery is the education we have right now. The system we have keeps people ignorant and poor.
We have it's another form of slavery.
Yes.
Particularly in Black and brown communities, and
public schools.
It's so whether that's public schools or whether that is the criminal injustice system.
It goes right from the school. I've worked in a school in New York from the 80s for a long time, and it just closed recently. And there were 4 metal detectors, and every kid and chains on the hallways, and every kid that went to that school was like preparing for jail, preparing for incarceration. I was like, this is horrible. That this is just the worst thing you're imprinting in these kids' brains. And then they would get just an uninspired environment, uninspired education. The systems were so antiquated. The structure of how to teach and build hope doesn't exist. And that, to me, that's the biggest, and I think climate change is huge and important. But we also have to talk about education as important, because this is the future. Climate change, education, that's the future. So I just lose it when it comes to I think that's my phone. I just absolutely lose it with the fact that we don't have people fighting for taking children who are impoverished or in situations where single parent families and giving them the most support to rise up out of that and really be the future. And we see when that works, it's incredible. It changes everybody. It's a big load that we have. If you had one sort of dream that you feel you still want to fulfill, that is, you have many dreams, I know, but I mean like one that you think I want to do. This is one thing that I see in my plan. What is that dream?
It's hard to look and say one in a global sense. In a global sense, I suppose in the most personal sense, it's that my girls will continue to do good work and inspire whatever sense I've been able to provide them with about the world at large, that they can keep living and changing the world. I suppose that's my, like, again, on a very personal note, I think I look at what's happened on our watch in our country and in the world, and I get really angry about it. And it's like, okay, how do we do something that's going to change the system? And I hope I live long enough to help make that change.
Well, I think your example for your daughters, whatever you have taught them or whatever you do, is not as powerful as who you are and what you're doing. I mean, in the end, they're only going to see who you are and what you do for so many people every day.
But at the end of the day, for me, you can say, oh, I'm a role model to this or that. At the end of the day, for me, there's only two people I'm a role model for, that I have an audience of two.
Right.
And
Awesome.
they can like make me crazy sometimes, but that becomes what is the most important for me.
And the thing is, kids really do know when they're loved. They do know that, and like whatever your frustration is, or however proud you are, the expression of love through that is so meaningful for kids. And we just finished talking about the kids in public schools who may not have anyone who's able to even give them the time for that, and that, it's such a precious thing to feel love from a parent. That's the strength they'll have in what they do the rest of their lives.
And hopefully movies can teach them too, and telling stories, movies on whatever that platform will be, can tell them stories and give them a sense of hope. And that is what, very specifically with When They See Us, the stories about the exonerated five was really about showing that there is hope and that we can make some real change.
Yeah, I mean, think about how that sort of, it was almost like a sigh of relief for so many people to see that there is a chance for things to change, and that's obviously what film can do, the power of film. I think we're all lucky to have some energy that we can contribute to. And I love, first of all, you're just the coolest.
Oh,
and I'm
God,
so
thank
happy
you.
that we've done this. But I just can't wait to see all the things you'll be doing. And hopefully we can talk again about this aging with power and how we can get messaging out about it. I'm committed to just saying, okay, I'm 74 and you don't have to, like, it's not all over. And you're such a great sort of visionary in this world, and I'm sure you'll come up with something. No pressure.
Oh, God, Norma. Oh, God, thank you.
Give
It's
me
an
a
honor.
hug.
Thank you.